Your life journey doesn't stand still, and neither should your wealth. Welcome to Wealth on the Move, the podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wealth on the Move, the podcast. My name is Will Hoffman, and I'm your host.
And I'm Bryn Tarbuck, your co-host.
Today, we're going to kind of perpetuate the conversation that we started on the last episode when we talked about lifestyle creep and talk a little bit about the opposite. I guess money dysphoria is the word or the phrase that is coming up in a lot of research and a lot of articles, and has really been a hot topic of conversation, at least a hot topic of conversation in the personal finance world in 2024. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of continue this conversation about, our thoughts and feelings and even mental health about money.
Yeah, really important. And I think the lifestyle creep is interesting, but when you were explaining this to me, it's just as interesting, because just as easy as it is to get into a lifestyle creep, as we're going to learn here today, it can be just as easy to kind of just hold yourself back from spending it all or doing anything, or just kind of stashing.
Yeah, stash and enjoy. And, there's a lot of references to things in our past that create this sense of, for lack of a better term, hoarding, hoarding money, hoarding cash, always feeling like there's not enough, and living in a world of scarcity rather than, looking at it from a place of abundance. And I want to make sure I say this right, of responsible abundance, because as we talked about in the last episode, lifestyle creep and overspending is just as debilitating. It can be just as big of a problem.
Yeah, big difference there between abundance and responsible.
Yes,
abundance.
and we thought it was going to be this episode. I'm fingers crossed it's the next episode that we have Michelle Walter from the Gen X Shift podcast back on to discuss our feelings and values around money, and it's really going to tie all this together. But I've really liked this to be the kickoff kind of theme to the new podcast, is discussing how we feel about money first. And it's kind of bizarre, talking about, I don't know that, and I'm sure there are other professions where feelings and emotions creep in a lot, but when it comes to the professions that we get lumped in with, whether it's accounting or attorneys or even like engineers to some degree, or doctors to some degree, where we're trying to help and take care of people. When it's time to have a medical procedure to save your life or to make you healthier, rarely is a doctor asking you, how do you feel about that?
Right.
It is, hey, we have to operate, because if we don't intervene, there could be worse damage done. You could be unhealthy, or you could get sicker. So, an engineer doesn't ask, how do you feel about driving across a bridge that I've just designed? Or now, my accountant probably doesn't want to ask how I feel about my tax return, because he would get an unfiltered and negative response. But, an accountant doesn't ask how you feel, or an attorney, you may not like a judgment or like the way you feel about what they do, but it needs to be done. But in our profession, how folks feel about money creeps into every conversation. We are always asking our clients, how do you feel? How does that feel? Which is something I learned from Michelle Walter, is, having those conversations about how that financial plan feels beyond the architecture of it, or the statistics, or the spreadsheet that goes along with it. We're asking folks all the time to tell us their risk tolerance and how they feel about investing. And that's always been bizarre to me, because I know we're going to talk about this in future episodes. To me, risk tolerance becomes kind of irrelevant. I know that we all have it, and I know that compliance teams all along may cringe at what I'm saying here, but our job is to help you get to your goals. And there may be an element of investing that is potentially uncomfortable for you. Now, there's ways to solve that doctors maybe don't have. Doctors have to intervene right away and cut and operate. But we can say, hey, you can save more. You could retire later. You could retire on a different amount of income. You can alter the goal if that risk doesn't feel comfortable to you. But we can also invest differently. And that's an option that, those risk tolerance questionnaires don't, they're asking how you feel about investing, how comfortable you are with sways in the market. I do have a news flash for you. None of us are comfortable with sways in the market.
Right. No.
None of us wake up every morning and say, man, I mean, I guess there are some options traders that would beg to differ, but none of us wake up in the morning and say, man, I hope the market drops 2% today.
I sure hope not.
So, right.
But it is interesting you say that, because I think, in hearing you guys, when you talk with your clients, how you feel, this is their financial plan. This is your financial plan. You have to feel good about it. If you don't feel good about it, then you're not going to enjoy it. And that's
right.
The goal. I mean, you worked hard for this. You should feel good, feel comfortable, and be able to responsibly enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is the money dysphoria and not enjoying it, hoarding it, always being fearful that there is not going to be enough. What causes that, how to work through it, and some resources that can help get you on your way. Dysphoria it's a psychiatric term. We keep saying dysphoria or dysmorphia. I guess there's one or two. I'm far from a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I've probably been told I need one from time to time. But it just means a profound sense of dissatisfaction. And I mean, to kind of touch on something from the last episode, happiness is kind of when the outcome meets the what you intended or what your anticipation was, and that's what's satisfying. And so this profound sense of dissatisfaction, whether there's not enough, whether you can't spend it on what you want. I would even maybe consider lifestyle creep to be an element of money dysmorphia, because you're spending, but it potentially isn't there. It's a little bit different because you're changing your lifestyle as you go, but always wanting to be rich and always wanting to be wealthy or even look rich could be an element of money dysmorphia.
Absolutely. So we talked about last episode how we get exactly to that lifestyle creep, and you say they're similar, but yet again they're different. Is how you get to this, is it a similar pathway is how this would happen?
Perhaps. I think, and again, there's been tons of articles really just this year, which is, remarkable that there's been so much published this year. Today Show did an episode on this. We're going to reference a website here in a bit that has a whole, it's really dedicated to the psychology and mental health around money. But I think we're seeing a lot in younger generations right now, which is why there's been so much research, because of what we just endured with rapid inflation over an 18-month period. Maybe it's the media trying to convince us. I mean, the media is always trying to convince us of things. There was a report done this year by the investing app Acorns, and it found out that 32% of millennials and 29% of Gen Zers worry that their finances could lead them to experience homelessness.
Oh, wow.
Now that's, you want to talk about an extreme
that's
concern or an extreme worry, that's 3 times more than older generations that have that same concern. So, as we research for today, digging into why that may happen, the media is telling us all the time that the economy is struggling. The economy is, we're in a political season right now where we're being told that one side or the other has the keys to the economy, and unless you elect them, we're not going to have a good economy. We are, home prices went up, interest rates went up, which meant that it became more expensive to have a home. Rents increased substantially. So it is a valid concern. I do think that the concern is legitimate. I do think that it may be exaggerated by the media a bit, because the
Isn't a
media,
lot of things.
sure, but the media is also not telling you, hey, get a good financial plan done, get a good cash flow
Right.
analysis done to understand if you should have that concern. But we're coming out of a significant period of traumatic events. I think it was a meme or something that I saw that, had a guy just kind of scratching his head and said, kind of sick of these life-changing events happening so frequently, and these earth shatter. We just came out
Yeah,
of,
isn't that the truth?
COVID, which, in some of our economic research and investment research, while for our portfolio designs, economists are comparing our economy right now to kind of like a post-war economy because of the impact of COVID and the abruptness of start and stop.
That in itself will, I think,
Sure.
scare a lot of people and make a lot of people nervous.
Created a lot
Mm.
of unexpected unemployment, a lot of transition in the way we work and how we work. So, that in itself is a legitimate event. But then, we're still only 16 years out from the financial crisis of 2008, or 2007 through 2008, which created a huge amount of distrust in financial systems and investments and the economy. And during that time period, we were going through the Bernie Madoff scandal, where he had, run the largest Ponzi scheme in history and duped thousands of investors out of their life savings. We're not too far out from the tech wreck, which, Bryn, you may have been born during, and I mean, that was when I was graduating from college. So, we graduated with this sense of, oh my gosh, I'm lucky to have a job. I hope I keep it, because we were in a 3-year long recession.
Yeah.
And, we still have touches back to as far as the Great Depression. It's funny, kind of an instance, and I think I had shared this before. My great grandmother, she lived to be 101,
Wow.
and she was a money hoarder, but it was because
Okay.
she was a child of the Great Depression. She
Right.
remembers what it was
Yeah.
like, where food was scarce, where there was a legitimate concern about homelessness,
Ugh.
to the point where she had cash in the walls
Wow.
and stored, kept cash
Wow.
in the event that she couldn't get to physical hard currency. So, all of these massive traumatic events create that fear. And I think, and Bryn, you're younger, so you tell me if I'm out of line here. I think the reason why younger folks are more concerned is you all watched your parents. I keep saying we watched our parents, like I'm one of these younger folks. Nice try, Slick. You guys watched your parents go through these traumatic events. So when you think about the financial crisis, where so many people lost their jobs, millennials watched their parents potentially lose their jobs. And they lost their jobs after they had made the errors that led to the financial crisis. They refinanced their house, they bought something that
Yeah.
they shouldn't have, and now home values dropped and they're out of work.
Right.
So they learned from it, thankfully.
Yeah.
If you don't learn from history, you're destined to repeat it. So they learn from those things. The divorce rate has never been higher. And maybe they watched their parents get divorced fighting about money. So, maybe all of that, witnessing those traumas has, what's the phrase? What what parents do in moderation, their kids do in excess.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
watching their
Yeah.
parents go through that has led them to the complete antithesis and saying, I am not going to spend irresponsibly. I'm going to be worried about my money. I'm not going to let it cause a rift at my dinner table. And now they're doing the opposite. And they're hoarding money and having this concern about money. And, you know, this I fear they're not enjoying their lives because they're worried about money. I don't, you're like I said, you're in that cohort. Do you think I'm on a line with that?
No, I don't think you're out of line at all with that. I think that especially, I mean, even for myself, I feel like especially since I've graduated high school, everything has just gotten more and more and more expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
even with COVID, you heard of a lot of people losing jobs after that because people were working from home and they didn't need as many people, or offices were shutting down, or, everything was. I had a cousin who couldn't even find baby formula. So I think
Oh
for
yeah, I
us,
forgot about that.
it's,
That was
yeah, it is. It's scary. And it's like, you get to the point where, I remember thinking, if I was my cousin, because she isn't that much older than me, I almost feel like I'd go to the grocery store and have to choose food for me or a can of baby formula. So I
yeah,
think the stigma of not wanting to almost run out
right.
is very powerful, especially in my age. But so it's interesting you say that. So once someone has been hoarding, let's say they've been doing this, they've been in this dysmorphia for a while. What happens? What are the effects of someone that's been doing this?
Um, what I've witnessed or through our discussions with folks that have gone through this, and it has been a little bit less frequent than so overspending or going into debt, but
Yeah.
they're never they never feel like they have enough money to be happy. They never feel like they have enough
Ah,
money to enjoy it, um to take a vacation, to buy the things that they would like. And their perception of wealth is a bit skewed. Now, granted, it's a much more responsible place to be than the alternative, but my grandmother, which ironically, my great grandmother's daughter, who was the hoarder, my grandmother used to say, "You can't take it with you." So again, what our parents do in moderation, we do in excess.
yeah.
Our kids do in excess. So they, she used to say, "You can't take it with you," and and I have memories and heard all the stories of her and my grandfather really enjoying their life and taking trips and going, seeing places and doing things, and they followed us all over the place for sports. And I think that somewhere in between, now they weren't financially irresponsible. I want to make sure I clarify that, but somewhere in between is where lies the secret to being financially independent but still being happy. There's that sense of inadequacy where they feel like they should always earn more and never really feel like they reach that financial independence. And you know the other thing is, and again, you can ask the question, do they need to invest if they're hoarding so much and not spending it? Potentially not need the risks of the stock market, but they buy cheap unhealthy products at the grocery store. So they're never, and I'm not going to deny that this is an issue in the United States, that eating healthy is
Yeah.
way too expensive. And we can save that conversation for somebody else's podcast, because they're going to be far more educated in it than I am. But the you know they will go the alternative route and eat the least expensive, least healthy items and do damage. Or again, vacation and entertainment become absent from their lives. And quite frankly, who wants to live that way?
Right.
Especially
Right.
when you can't, you can live the alternative.
I always said balance is key. You
Yeah.
have to have fun, but you have to keep the lights on at the same time.
I think Confucius said that too, right?
I don't
Confucius was a Chinese philosopher. that has a lot of
Can't say I know
sayings
him.
around balance. Look him up. Read a book sometime.
Oh. Okay, so I have a question for you then. Do you
Okay.
think that social media has played into this, especially with my generation, as seeing, because you
It
said people struggle with that definition of wealth, and I feel like
yes.
social media can be very easy to stretch that definition.
It can. I mean, quite frankly, all media gives us
Yes.
a skew. Whether it's reality. Again, I'm not a big fan of quotey fingers, but reality TV. We have a very skewed version of wealth. We can apply a philosopher's view to wealth, and instead of a dollar symbol, it's happiness.
Yeah.
Are you happy in your life? Do you have the financial independence to be satisfied with the direction of your life, be happy with what you can afford, what you want to afford, the places you want to go, the things you want to see, the foods you want to eat, the experiences you'd like to have. That to me is the catalyst of wealth. And when we sit down with our clients and we ask them to give us a budget or to go through a budget, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a budget stickler. Now, again, I have 3 kids, so it's very difficult to be a budget stickler because every month there's something else, whether it's sports starting, whether it's braces, whether
Yeah.
it's
Well, and I think weekly they're a couple inches taller than they were the week
right,
prior.
that
So
food budget keeps getting stretched and stretched and stretched. So having a steadfast budget is a challenge, especially, listen, the title of our podcast is Wealth on the Move. Our
yeah,
specialty is busy families and
busy.
active retirees. That
Yep.
budget is a moving target sometimes. But the one thing we tell our clients to create is a idea of your monthly expenses on what you have to have and what you want to have,
Mm,
so that in those times of uncertainty, of job loss, of market disruption, of economic peril, we know that we can revert back to what you need to have.
yeah.
And that's what you need to have to not be eating beans out of the can and still maintaining a healthy life. And maybe at that point you are foregoing a vacation.
Right.
At that point you are, not updating your wardrobe as you would like. Maybe at that point, we're buying a used car instead of a new car. Whatever the financial decision is, we know that we have this backstop of this is what I have to have to live, to
Okay.
meet my financial goals. Now, I think you and I would both agree what we have to have and what we want to have can
Right.
differ vastly. And what we want
Yes.
to have is always our goal. That is,
Absolutely.
to have the life that we want. We want to help folks build to that. But to create that, to be able to move that mental health roadblock out of the way, or that money dysphoria roadblock out of the way, you need to know what your backstop is. There's a great app, a great website, a part of our website that we're going to put in the show notes. We have a really good cash flow calculator that allows you to go through, and no matter where you are in your stage of life, if you're just starting, if you are in the midst of your peak earning years, or if you're preparing for retirement, there's a great cash flow tool on there so that you can figure out what's coming in, where income's coming from, and what's going out. And even on there, there's a lot of gaps for other.
Yeah.
If you want to be a member at a country club, you can put your club dues in there. If you have hobbies that, yes, you want to climb Mount Everest, and that's a hobby of yours, but climbing Mount Everest isn't cheap. It's a very expensive hobby.
I'm sure.
So,
I can't
maybe in
imagine.
a market downturn, we're pushing Everest out a year, or what do we have to do to make sure that, listen, I am summiting Everest in 2028, regardless of the economic conditions of the world. So we're planning for that.
But that's why it's important to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. if you don't have a plan. Is it ever difficult, do you think, for people to decipher between that need and that want? Especially
can
maybe
be.
people that have already gotten into that lifestyle creep?
It can be. But I think if they're honest with themselves when they go through this exercise, they can say, okay, I know I can live without this to make
Boil
sure
it down
that
to what
that
they
happens. Right.
really need.
You know, if
Okay.
if we are honest with ourselves through that process, and you know, maybe it's a process that we should go through on a deeper level with our clients, but quite frankly, I like to stay out of that conversation because it's not up to me what's important to you.
Right.
You know, it's up to us. We have a great visual that Bryn has created for us that shows, you know, your job is the why. You
Mhm.
come up with why you're saving, why you're investing, why you have a financial plan, why you want to execute these things. Our job is to come up with a how, and in the middle of that Venn diagram is where we come together. And that's what's important is, you know, knowing their why. And teachers of the world are probably sick of hearing that by now. Know your why, but it's it I think it's something that when you're truly honest with yourself or with your spouse and having these conversations at home before you go meet with a financial advisor or have your annual review, having those conversations of, are we still saving for these things? Is this stuff still important? Because hey, it changes. It changes.
Absolutely, yeah.
10 years ago, I would have never imagined that when I was starting on the journey to run my first marathon, that 10 years later, I would be in a bike store trying to figure out how much a bike costs to go do a triathlon. And there I was last night in a bike store trying to learn that.
Were you a bit shocked?
Yes. Yeah. I hit my parents up. I said, you want to buy your baby boy a Christmas present? Or you want to buy your baby boy a new bike for Christmas? Little bit more expensive
How'd that go?
than the Mongoose in 1988, but
Right,
I think
right.
it went exactly how I expected it to go, but had to ask, right?
Never know. There might be a bow on a bike Christmas morning. You just never know. Okay, so what I'm getting from you when you say that is, so there, at the end of the day, there is a way to
Sure.
avoid it, but still have enough
Yeah.
funds.
You know, perspective is important there. The cash flow is important to understand because you may realize, okay, I'm overdoing this. I don't need to be
Yeah.
saving in excess what I'm doing. I can't afford Starbucks. I can't afford avocado toast. I can't afford all the things that, you know, other commentators tell you, no, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. You know,
You can afford to treat yourself every
sure.
now and then, yeah.
And
Responsibly.
responsibly, of course, right.
Yeah.
The other thing is setting setting realistic financial goals. So
Realistic there, I think, is the key word.
sure, you know, it would be lovely to be a billionaire.
Absolutely. Sign me up.
But is it realistic? It would be lovely to be the first civilian to Mars. But, you know, saving for those things, hey, they could be important to you, and we'd be happy to help and brag that our client was the first civilian on Mars. But
That's right.
you know, keeping that those realistic financial goals are important. And automating savings, automating, you know, once a month, I know that I need to be saving X to hit my financial goals, and saving that automatically and having discussions about, okay, there's extra. What do we want to do? Do we want to treat ourselves? Do we want to take the trip? That we didn't think was a reality, and now it is. You know, having all those conversations with yourself, with your spouse, with your partner is important. With your financial advisor is equally as important. You know, we are not just buy this, sell that anymore. You know, we are here to help and get you to those places where you'd ultimately like to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if I said it before, but you keep saying you have to be honest with yourself, honest with, whoever you're having the conversation with. That can be hard.
Sure.
But I think that it's even more important in this kind of conversation because this is your plan. This is your long-term decisions you make now could have an effect 20 years from now when you go to retire, or, God forbid, something catastrophe happens and you need to be prepared.
Well, and that's why, understanding an emergency plan when it comes to your money is important. This break the glass. Here's my money that I don't touch. I don't invest it. I don't spend it. It sits over here as an emergency fund if something catastrophic happens, if my employer decides that they want to lay me off. Those are so important that can create that freedom of thought regardless of where you are in your life at that point. And kind of soothe that concern so that you can move beyond this. And as your pay increases, as promotions come, yes, it is necessary to beef that up because expenses can and will and maybe even should creep up. We're not, lifestyle creep isn't entirely negative. It's why we work so hard. But if financial independence is your goal, if you want your money to keep moving with you, you do have to beef up those savings and those emergency funds also.
Okay, so you want your money to keep moving with you. But what if we have fallen, or someone has fallen partially victim to this money dysmorphia?
Mm-hmm.
What can they do? What would you tell? I mean, I think I know what you're going to say, but
well, I mean, one, you do have to remember this is an irrational insecurity. Over the history of time, there has always been a reason to be afraid of the market. From presidential assassinations to terrorist attacks to financial crises to, criminals in our profession that make Ponzi schemes like Bernie Madoff. And the financial world has continued to turn. But also something to understand is there is not a financial product that is going to soothe those concerns, regardless of what the commercials on television tell you, regardless of what a financial product salesperson tells you, regardless of what a portfolio construction model tells you. It's not going to soothe those concerns. The one thing that does soothe those concerns is having a plan in place. Plan early, plan often, revisit your plan when these things happen, revisit your plan at least once a year to say, okay, if this were to happen, if this irrational fear that I have were to come to fruition, what happens with my money? It's a question you should be asking your advisors. If you're working with one, it's a question you should be asking yourself. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, it's a question that we want our clients to ask us. If this irrational fear were to become a reality, and I wouldn't even say irrational, if this fear were to become a reality, what do we do? Are we okay? Can we still proceed with vacations and educations and all of those things? That is a great foundation to a plan, because some fears are worth planning for. Fear that if you're in a dual income household, that one of those incomes goes away through an early death in a family. How do we plan for that? How do we make sure that a disability, an injury, you like to ski? Okay. How do we make sure that, if you're disabled from a skiing accident for a short period of time or a long period of time, that you're taken care of? Having those plans in place do become a vital solution to all of that fear, and may just show you by the numbers that, listen, this is a bit irrational. You're okay. You can stop at Starbucks if you want to. You can, and we're picking on Starbucks a lot. You can stop for a latte if you want to. You can have avocado toast. You can enjoy some of the quote unquote luxuries that you've been avoiding because of your fear of financial dystopia.
I love that plan. Bottom line,
yes.
plan.
Plan early, plan often. There was a lot of things we talked about when we were still the Monetary Mixtape about education funding, and the solution was always get started early. Get a plan, no matter where you are in this stage. Even if you don't think you're suffering from money dysmorphia or lifestyle creep, make sure that there is a plan in place to help guide you through these things, especially if you have ambition for your life, where you want that to go, how you want your money to work for you, how you want your money to create that financial independence. Having that plan is vital, because the product doesn't exist to solve that later. This is not a like shopping for a car, where this car is going to solve all your issues, or this truck is going to help you tow that, or this truck is going to help you with your business or something. This is different. This is your money, and to make sure it's still moving with you, having a plan becomes essential.
I love that. Moving with you through hopefully all the good, but then God, if something were to happen, you have that plan in place, so you're not as shocked either when the time comes around.
And we found a couple of resources. Like I said, there's a great budget tool on our website, a great cash flow analysis that we'll put in the show notes. Another website we came across, it's called Mental Health and Money Advice. Will also be in the show notes. It's just a great way to maybe answer some of the psychological questions that may exist or emerge from these conversations. Maybe get to the bottom of if you are having fears about money and having concerns about money that maybe even go past irrational. And the last thing we want people doing is losing sleep at night about these things, because we do know that even if it does require some discipline or require some other solutions do exist. So that was a great website that, while I was tooling around there, did add some insight to understand kind of how the mental health aspect of what we're doing and we're talking about can be solved.
Awesome. Yeah, we will surely put both of those in the show notes for everyone to be able to access. Great resources for you.
And again, you can always reach out to us. If you through our website, hoffmanwealth.com. Brent and I are both very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to us, and we can have those conversations with you if you like.
Yeah, whether you have a plan and need to reevaluate, or whether you haven't started.
Right.
Either or.
I think that was a great conversation. I learned a lot preparing for this. I'm excited to have Michelle on. Again, I'm pretty sure she's going to be the next episode. She's been a great resource for me. As a friend, as a business planning resource, her podcasts always deliver some great insight on a lot of different topics. So we're excited to have her back on here soon.
Really looking forward to seeing what gets put together with you guys. All right, well, stay tuned, and we will catch you guys next time. Until then, keep your wealth on the move.
Thank you.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Hoffman Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.